Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at GCNlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Well, good morning, America, and to those around the world. This is Rich Scheben sitting in for Vincent Finelli today, and Jason will be engineering the broadcast in Minnesota. And for those of you familiar with where I live in the Northern Rockies here in northwest Montana, where I am broadcasting from. And I'm going to stick to the similar type of format that I've been doing the last several weeks. I know most of you are very familiar with me talking about off-grid living and using financial, economic, social, and political rationale evenly to discuss the corruption, the fraud, the monetary system, the central banks, the demographics, what options you have, where to go. And the last several weeks, I've been talking pretty much mostly about the election voter fraud. I'm using math. I'm giving lots of evidence of affidavits and whistleblowers. I'm talking about how 29 states use the software. I've talked about drop and roll techniques. I've talked about, countless statistical improbabilities. And that should really be talked about in the context of impossibilities, because Joe Biden has already proved he did not win. Election integrity is gone. The system is rigged. And we are living in a system that's a process of fakery. We've talked about the glitches, the redating of ballots, the machine voting abnormalities. We've talked about, especially in the swing states, we've talked about and given lots of proof for not just the anomalies, the abnormalities, the irregularities, the glitches, the illegal votes, the dead people voting, increased ballots more than registered voters, double voting, triple voting, multiple states voting, thousands of voters with the same address, ballot stuffing, poll watchers, where Republicans are turned away, intimidated, and threatened, unsealed ballots, shredder trucks showing up at election headquarters, dirty voter rolls, no signature matches, no envelope matches, fake transparency, thumb drives being stolen on film, inserting into computers on video, internet connections proven, foreign intrusion proven. But guess what? When we talk about all this illegitimacy, that's every scenario is in favor of Joe Biden. Everyone. But you are all conspiracy theorists. You conspiracy theorist, you. See, folks, we're in a point in history that the powers that be are all bought and paid for, blackmailed, threatened, and it's up to we, the people, to make the difference. We, the people, are going to have to be the judge and the jury, because 95% of the lawyers, the judges, the courts are all rigged. They have turned against the people. They're blackmailed. They're paid off. They sold out the people and the Constitution for their own personal gain. So we have to make a choice. This is our home. We inherited our freedoms and our Constitution by over 1 million combat soldiers who gave their life for us. And we all have to look ourselves in the mirror and ask a question. Are we willing to fight for it? So what I'm going to continue to do is talk about the fake theater, the fake everything, the fake narratives, and I'm going to go back to math. I'm going to talk about all the Dominion donations, Smartmatic, the boards of directors, the kickbacks, the lobbyists, the investors, and put that in air quotes, by the way, the image cast technology voting machines, which has a physical ability to mark votes onto the ballot after the last time the voter sees the ballot. We're going to talk about the lack of security standards, these private companies basically running the software and hardware with design backdoors to create the results they want, hide forensic trails, basically talk about the national security collapse we have, including the math algorithms that's been discovered as evidence, which again, imagine my shock, the great majority of votes goes to, anybody want to guess? You guessed it, Joe Biden. So let's just jump into more objective facts and keep the subjective emotional opinion to satire. How's that? Okay, I'm looking at a chart here, people, and it's a little busy, but it mentions the states of Nevada, Pennsylvania, Minnesota, North Carolina, Wisconsin, Michigan, Arizona, and Georgia. Now, it would take a lot of airtime to mention all the votes, the number of registered, and the projected votes, which are columns, but I'm going to stick to the percent turnout. Now, percent turnout, I want you to think about this. These are statistical, not improbabilities, impossibilities. Nevada, percent turnout for voting, 125%. Pennsylvania, 109%. Minnesota, 107%. North Carolina, 106%. Wisconsin, 105%. Michigan, 105%. Arizona, 101%. And Georgia, 96%. Now, I'm going to say a few disclaimers throughout the show, and I do this purposely, because if you're a new listener, sometimes I give articles and certain bullet points from articles or interviews that I've read or watched, and I've written them down. And I mention bullet points because sometimes I have to read a 5-6 page article, and I find that maybe a few sentences is worthy of objective fact. And that's what I try to use, objective fact. I try to verify on multiple sites. It's never 100% possible to do that, but I'm probably up in the 90% category now, and I really try hard to verify as much of this information as I can. So some of you might think I'm making this up if you're a new listener, and I promise you, all data, all quotes, all opinions from the objective facts is all published in the public domain. Now, I will give add-on opinions. I will put my 2 cents in, but most of this is objective facts, again, verified from published sources. So that being said, first one, whistleblowers, Postal Service labeled Trump mail undeliverable. 388,000 ballots backdated suddenly disappear. Ooh. People, I've talked in great detail about the U.S. Postal Service, the CIA, the FBI, the DOJ, and Barr apparently resigning, and probably it was fake news put out by the mainstream media, and then Barr says that, oh, I'll be here until Trump doesn't need me. Boy, you really got to ask yourself, does he need him? It's amazing how these people can collect paychecks. These government workers, are what their job description is today, it's covering up for the cover-ups. Now, I hope these people are playing 3D chess. I hope they're going to come out and make mass arrest. I hope President implements the executive order from 2018, which we discussed a week or two ago in great detail, which took me over an hour. I hope all this is true. But for what I'm seeing government workers covering up the cover-ups. I mean, how can I say a sentence like this? Postal Service labeled Trump mail undeliverable, and 388,000 ballots were backdated that suddenly disappear. People, this is the biggest illegitimate sham of a scam, third world banana republic BS any of us has ever seen. This whole election should be labeled null and void, and at the very least, there should be a revote. You know, when you see these government workers who make 10, 20, 30 times the paycheck benefit package and pension that we don't get, that we pay for their pension, by the way, and they're covering up the cover-ups, and they can't get fired. You got to think, we got to have a new name for government workers. You know, if they had a band, if the government workers unions got together and had a band, you know, like a rock band, I almost think, what would be a great band name for people whose job description is covering up the cover-ups? I have two ideas. One idea is the Foreskins. The Foreskins. The next idea name should be the Skid Marks. The Foreskins and the Skid Marks. So when you see your friendly government worker who literally has hedged their bet against the American people for their own personal gain, that is the name of their band, the Foreskins and the Skid Marks. And you know what should be their mission statement? It should be selling out to the highest bidder under the guise of debunking. Have you heard now these government workers who are paid by us are saying that all this evidence, the affidavits, all the witnesses is unprovable, and we've proved it. Now they're calling it, they've debunked it. See, people, it's not a left-right paradigm. People are invested in crimes, cover-ups, and money for their personal gain. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody. Rich Scheben sitting in for Vincent Finelli. So I'm going to start talking about more voter/election fraud evidence, articles, bullet points, etc. I have a lot. I'm sure I'm going to throw some comments in between because it's fun. So, next article. Non-citizens and illegals voted in North Carolina report. See, this is everything today is a group. You know, just like the CEO, I think, of YouTube, Susan Wojcicki, whatever the heck her name is, she was saying that basically you're going to get preference based on skin pigmentation, your gender, the gender you identify as, sexual orientation, and everything is going to be over white male heterosexuals to increase the hate for white male heterosexuals because that is the narrative. That's what they have to push. So, but when you look at things like groups like Asians, okay, now Asians, I read, are now called white supremacists. But Ilhan Omar's husband can get over $600,000 of COVID relief, and you have to pay for it, while 14 million people are being kicked out of their apartments and people are starving all over the country and especially the world. So, next article. Nevada judge does not rule on obvious voter fraud case. The U.S. Postal Service is preventing witnesses from testifying. So for those of you who thought my little satirical segment before last break was too harsh, when the U.S. Postal Service is threatening and intimidating their workers from telling the truth, that is a 100% banana republic. See, President Trump, you must declassify everything and label it the U.S. Postal Service executive order. Everything. Because these people, Mr. President, have put their safety, their health, their well-being, their jobs on the line for you, for us, for our country. Because the U.S. is being taken over by non-elected, big money, traitors, seditious traitors, and dictators, and totalitarian communists. Now, I know there's a lot of people thinking that how come the good guys aren't revealing all the evidence in lower courts? It's all speculation here, folks, but I've been doing a lot of reading about this, and I can sum it up in a couple of short words. And this is what I think. Again, it's speculation. I don't have a crystal ball, but I think there's a reason for revealing less evidence in the lower courts. First of all, the lower courts are bought and paid for the most part. Okay? They're traitors. They're communists. They have been bribed. They have been blackmailed. They have been threatened. So, and from what I understand, they've been threatened with really bad stuff. Like look at even Jenna Ellis. The Democrats say she deserves to be raped. She deserves to be raped. Well, maybe we should get Brett Kavanaugh involved in this since he's a gang rapist, right? See, I really feel that this is a purposeful strategy of not revealing all evidence so they can get to the Supreme Court in a timely manner and release the evidence. Because to me, these people, when you're intimidating, threatening, bribing, blackmailing, and threatening with murder and rape, these people don't want to come out and be a whistleblower. So I think the good guys are hiding the whistleblowers and the evidence for when it counts, when the home run pitch comes with the Supreme Court. And that's what I think is happening. I'll be right back after the break, folks. We appreciate you being here. Welcome back to the show, everybody. Rich Scheben sitting in for Vincent Finelli today. And I'm just going to get back to more articles, more bullet points regarding election/voter fraud. And I'm going to make some comments in between here, as I like to do. And since I'm by myself, I have a little more time. So first, next article, Georgia has 250 open election fraud cases. People, it's amazing what a sellout people in government have been to the people. We now have thousands of citizens every day doing the job that the government and the mainstream media should be doing on a volunteer basis, like people like myself and Vince. And everything is run by the elite, and we're paying them a huge paycheck. Government workers today are now the biggest welfare fraud on the American people. They've gone rogue. They are manufacturing fraud to be the norm. They're overreaching. They're unfunctional. They're corrupt. This is why I say we need term limits for not just elected officials, but government workers. If you're paid by the taxpayers for your job, you should get 8 years, and that is it. Whether you're an elected official or any government workers, 8 years. 90% of government needs to go. We need public forums in every town where the little people can grab a microphone and be heard. Because these people at the very top, they specialize mainly in two things, and that's manufacturing their own perception or your perception of what they want you to think of their own self-importance, but mostly their own self-preservation. And this is why we need practice what you preach laws. This is why I talk about the hypocrisies and the double standards, which I hope to get to today as well, and dovetail the agenda, in other words, the COVID-19 84 agenda with that. Beware of experts. Beware of officials, especially official authority. We've gotten to the point where the big corporate and government system today simultaneously breeds, incentivizes, cultivates, grooms, rewards the corruption from these individuals. Almost every department, all corporations are so corrupt and greedy, and they're cowards, and they're sellouts to the people. They're seditious traitors. They're self-serving, and they feather their own nest around every corner, and they have the audacity to call themselves a public servant. When all these people are getting away with lies, they're redefining words and laws. They're enabling the most biggest corrupt departments in government and big corporations. And they're using all these groups and people against each other. They're poisoning us against ourselves. The elite is even controlling the narratives and thoughts, and that's why they want groupthink. It's up to us to discuss these hypocrisies and double standards. I mean, we're going to get to the point where the only people who are getting ahead, folks, are the snitches and the tattletalers and the yes men and the butt kissers and the professional pot stirrers and the gossipers and the censors and the phony, fake, virtual signaling followers, the traitors, the manipulators, the practicing hypocrites, the people who scream racist, bigots, sexist, misogynists, the conspiracy theorists, anti-Islamist phobe, and sacrificing truth and the rule of law along the way and getting peripheral benefits like money in their back pocket, certain addictions to power, money control, election interference, forced vaccines. It's really sad, especially in a big corporate environment where now we have this fake, we don't even have close to capitalism. We have a fake, phony system. And you can call it crony capitalism. But what they're doing is they're taking their gains and sticking it in their pocket, and they're privatizing that, but they're socializing their losses and giving you the bill. And most of it's done through favors and graft. They're pro-fascism, pro-corporate feudalism, major corporate welfare proponents, all kind of rolled into one. The bailouts, the stock buyouts, too big to fail, too big to jail, the zombie companies kept afloat. That's code for bailing out the bond markets. And how does that affect the little people? Increased delinquencies, defaults, bankruptcies, homelessness, and there's a moratorium expiring soon on evictions as well. So the little guy is having a very hard time catching a break because the wealth redistribution, as long as we stay politically correct and don't say anything, because we're afraid to be called a racist, bigot, sexist, misogynist, homophobe, you've heard me say this a million times, the redistribution of wealth will continue to get more ferocious. Money from the bottom 93% going to the top 1 to 2%. We get the crumbs, the top 5 to 6% get the loaves of bread, and the very few people at the top get the bread trucks and the bakeries. Okay, next article. Georgia's government attorneys argue Dominion election fraud trade secrets must not be probed. See, again, what they're doing is they're just protecting the big guy under the guise of protecting their patents, for example. It has nothing to do with it. They don't want to uncover the truth. That's what that is. Next. Ballots identified in pristine condition in Wisconsin, similar to the fraudulent ballots in Georgia and Michigan. See, all these ballots that come in without envelopes, without legitimate signatures, without creases in them, and they say it was mailed, it's all BS. It's an impossibility. I almost hate the word improbability anymore. Next. Anti-Trump Democrat in Georgia says suitcase scandal caught running same batch of ballots through tabulator 3 times. Ruby Freeman. I'm sure everybody in the country and the world has seen the mother-daughter team break out the suitcase of ballots, kick people out with affidavits proving it, even though the powers that be said that they left voluntarily, which is BS. And then all of a sudden, this huge spike of votes come in at the exact hour that these people get kicked out. And they got them on film running all of these ballots over and over again. It's a conspiracy theory, folks. Our eyes are not, we're dreaming. We didn't see the USB stick get transferred from somebody's hand to another person's hand. It's all a dream. Next, Georgia officials approve extended mail-in ballots, paving the way to steal runoff Senate races like they stole the 2020 races. Next, timing of large Georgia ballot dump for Biden appears to coincide with the timing of mother-daughter duo's election fraud scam. I just touched on that. Next, crooked Georgia election supervisor filmed pulling out suitcases of ballots beneath the table. Identified it. Again, mother and daughter, Ruby's team. Next, Nevada testimony. Voting machine USB drives had totals altered overnight. It's a testimony. Next, U.S. Postal Service whistleblower. Jesse Morgan with Lou Dobbs, 288,000 completed ballots went from New York to Pennsylvania. Well, he must have been sleep driving. It's a conspiracy theory. Is that a diagnosis? Can you sleep drive? I know you can sleepwalk. Can you sleep drive? That must have been what happened. It's a conspiracy. Next, 100,000 forged ballots in Nevada. Dead people voting. Oh, that can't be true. Next, hackers break into Alaska voter database, steal information on 100,000 voters. Officials stressed this had no effect on the November election. Is there anybody out there who'd like to buy a bridge? I know Alaska won for the Republicans, but almost every state was affected a little bit. The reason why this is going on is because Donald Trump won in a landslide. He won over 400 electoral college votes. Next, Colonel Phil Waldron tells Michigan lawmakers truckloads of ballots for Joe Biden were inserted into the 2020 election. Next, one batch of 23,000 ballots, all for Biden, identified in Georgia that were fraudulent. More than enough just for the Trump win here. Next, Trump team has Dominion machine from small Georgia county shows votes flipped from Trump to Biden. This was a small county, folks. All these so-called machines, you got to remember something. Just a few days ago, they were avoiding machines being checked and tested and impounded or even touched. Now they're letting a few Republicans test the machines. I bet they've all been swiped with the different machines. I mean, Sidney Powell was talking about getting a subpoena for a machine, and they stole it while she was getting a subpoena. See, this is why we have to make a choice, folks. It's guts and truth, or wanting to be liked and selling out your fellow Americans. Election integrity is gone. The whole system is rigged. Americans no longer have rights. We no longer have a voice. This is a disgrace how these Georgias, Pennsylvania, and swing sets are counting all votes while we have videos of handoffs of USB sticks. I mean, they're changing the rules right before the election. This is disgusting, people. This is why we need to really concentrate on tackling political correctness, because it's dividing us, it's distracting us, it's dumbing us down. We need to stop discussing philosophy and stories and discuss more objective facts and less subjective emotional opinion. We need to eliminate all the mainstream media. Go to the alternative media. Eliminate TV. Think for yourself. When they censor information, why do you think they're doing that? Because they're covering up their crimes. We'll be right back, folks. Appreciate you being here. Welcome back to the show, folks. Rich Scheben sitting in for Vincent Finelli. And I'm talking about election voter fraud stuff. And we have to remember that these people, all this evidence, that all these affidavits, all these witnesses, all the videos, all the photographs, you know, there's people who are invested, really corrupt people invested in these crimes, in these cover-ups. And it's about them not going to prison because they're making a ton of money. When they use the term liberal, that's code for, it's for their personal gain. And this is why we, patriots, we need to show courage. We need to be willing to be hated for telling the truth in lieu of blowing smoke up other people's butts so we can make ourselves look good. We don't have time for that anymore. Every government position is told what to do, what to say. They're told to hold the narrative. They're not hired to represent the people anymore. They're hired to control them and cover up the crime. And they're usually making some type of favors or graft for their benefit. Everything's going to the highest bidder. Everything's for sale. Math, science, academia, politics, votes, elections, polls, focus groups. Everything is created so the outcome starts and then they backtrack from there. It's all fake and phony. Everything. It's just like the vaccines, which I'm going to talk about later in the show. You know, I haven't verified this, but there's you have to ask if you're getting forced under a knife, if you're getting really forced to take a vaccine and you don't want it, you need to ask that particular physician or diagnostician or nurse or whoever's giving you that if they have MRC-5. That's as in Mary, R as in Rich, C as in cat, dash 5. Basically what it is, it's aborted fetal cells. And most, if not all, vaccines today have them. So then you need to ask the question, is there a possibility of iatrogenic reaction? Most, if not all, do. Basically, it's an adverse reaction caused by multiple compounds. Now, that diagnostician is going to say, yes, that's true. Then you can legally refuse the vaccine because doctors have sworn an oath, a Hippocratic oath, not to harm you, the patient. So you can legally decline the drug. We should all be able to legally decline a vaccine if we want. Where are all the feminists that says we can do what we want with our body? Where are your big mouths now? Now, I've talked about quite a few articles in the last few weeks of people calling or expecting or wondering if we're going to have martial law. And I want to know, if we have it, who's going to be in power? Is it going to be FEMA? Is it going to be some Army Reserves? Is it going to be the UN? Is it going to be some other military faction? If it's the president, I think the majority of people would probably agree to that because he's pro-Constitution. But we have to ask, what type of, is it going to be a secession? What kind of concessions are we going to give? There's so many things. There's still a few directions this can all go, folks, because Congress can vote on January 6th to not accept elector votes from fraudulent states because we are proving so much fraud. So there'll be a short debate in Congress and the Senate, but Congress ultimately determines the outcome of the president elections per the Constitution. It doesn't have to go to the Supreme Court. So they can reject electoral college votes because of all this massive fraud. Now, just the other day, the Biden team was blocked from secret meetings in D.C. as per the Pentagon. That's a good sign. That means that the powers that be sitting in the desks in Washington think that it is election/voter fraud. And if we basically install Joe Biden, we will be officially illegitimate. Just look at our dollar over the past few weeks, folks. Look at our world reserve currency dollar. We have lost more purchasing power in the last few weeks than we have, speaking in percentage-wise, over the past several years at the same time period. It's because the people around the world are afraid. They're saying that America is no longer legitimate. There's so much voter fraud, we can't trust them, and this is what's happening to our dollar. I'll be right back after the hard break at the top of the hour, folks. We appreciate you being here. Welcome back to hour number 2, everybody. Rich Scheben in Montana sitting in for Vincent Finelli. And I am going to go back to more election/voter fraud evidence. And when I give this stuff, I want you to think about if you had done these crimes, these cover-ups, these manipulations, in almost any context for an employer, would you have your job? You not only would not have your job, you'd be in the who's gal. Unless you're a government worker. And of course, it all depends on what group you're in. They are in the process of delegitimizing America, folks. And there's an article about, and it was a video too, it was deleted from the Chinese social media of a professor saying that China, and I'm quoting here, has people at the top of America's core inner circle of power of influence. If we don't wake up, if we don't stop worrying about our group hyphen and pronoun, if we don't start increasing the bars of standards and expectations for your job. If we keep demanding to feel entitled for what group we're in, and we demand that certain people don't get rights restitution and protection under the rule of law, the ones that are targeted, we are literally giving a check on runaway power, and we are eliminating the rule of law in the name of creating precedents. And that enables and protects the most corrupt companies and government institutions with liability immunity, which creates more wealth inequality for the bottom 93% and offers free lunch for the elite. So we can talk about all these hypocrisies and double standards and brainwashing techniques, and you're just going to continue to be the pawns, and you will continue to lose, and you're going to continue to be biologically, chemically, technologically, and psychologically destroyed. We cannot allow the elite to poison us against ourselves, people. It's time to start being American. So I'm going to start going into more articles here. 96,000 mail-in ballots never returned, but were assigned to Dominion voting system. Some of these articles I just can't believe. Next, expert identifies 200,000 votes were hijacked from Trump to Biden in Georgia at the precinct level. Next, Trump lead counsel breaks down how tens of thousands of illegal votes were cast in Georgia. And this is on video. So you can't dismiss math either, folks. Next, we caught them. Third suspect in Georgia's suitcase scandal is also the same man who spread lies about the water main break, which was a lie. Next, master cyber forensic specialist says physically impossible to scan votes in machines as quickly as they did. So they had other alternative means to bump the votes up. Again, Trump won in such a landslide. That's why they stopped vote counting, because they had to do every means possible to get the ballots in there, to get the USB sticks in there, to redo ballots over and over again and scan them over and over again. They were desperate. That's why they were writing chicken scratch, like that MSL I mentioned like a week ago, where there was thousands of the same signature with 3 letters. They were scrambling, folks. They were scrambling, and that's why the chicken scratch was on there, and there wasn't down votes on the ballot either. It's all a scam. Next, Sidney Powell has a huge bag of shredded ballots in her office. Raffensperger and Gabriel Sterling investigated. We have so much evidence, folks, in every fashion, it's unbelievable. Next, confirmed Supervisor Shay Moss, who yelled out for Georgia GOP observers to go home, is the same woman who pulled the suitcase from underneath the table, and it's on video. People, it's unbelievable that we're so corrupt that this election has not been made null and void. And this is why the U.S. dollar is losing ground. When inflation happens, meaning loss of purchasing power, it doesn't affect the big guy. It affects the little guy dramatically. Next, Nevada voter fraud. Historically strange spike in incomplete registrations. Casinos used as home addresses. Casinos. I mean, you couldn't. If I was creating a cartoon, I don't think I could pull off this imagination. Next, voting machines used in Pennsylvania and other states were built to be manipulated. Testifying witness. You got to remember, there's over 1,000 affidavits now, folks. people who are going to go to jail via perjury or because of perjury. These people are patriots coming forward, despite all the threats and the blackmails and the briberies and the threats of rape, like Jenna Ellis, who the Democrats say she deserves to be raped. My God. Next, protest erupts in front of radical Michigan Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson's home after lawmakers discover all Michigan County... Oh, you're going to love this one, folks. All Michigan County clerks were ordered to delete election-related data on the computers. Can you tell me how we're still... why we haven't classified ourselves as a banana republic yet? Please. Next, rigged. Preset percentages of Trump votes in Michigan were fraudulently shifted to Biden. Imagine my shock. Next, again, folks, every little glitch, everything, every improbability, every redating, every machine voting abnormality, everything is in favor of Joe Biden. Can't even make this stuff up. Next, Arizona Supreme Court agrees to hear election challenge after investigation of 100 ballot samples finds 3% of the ballots were deemed fraudulent, all in favor of, guess who? Joe Biden. Next, Trump has 258,000 watching his rally. To put it a different way, folks, it's 258 more viewers than Joe Biden got during his Thanksgiving speech. Yeah. And Joe Biden, Mr. Popular, won the election. Yeah. Next, Dominion advisor met with John Podesta offering, quote, anything that would help defeat Trump, according to emails released by WikiLeaks. Next, by the way, release Julian Assange. Next, Dominion voting system severed connections to China, server connected to China and Iran, affidavit claims. Again, this witness signs an affidavit under perjury of law. Next, China engaged in active war in U.S. elections. Absolutely they did. Next, China whistleblower. I could not verify this on multiple sites, but this is huge if this is true. China whistleblower reveals video and photos of Chinese counterfeit ballot printing. Next, Michigan demands deletion of voting data. Why do you think they want to eliminate questionable data? Because it's evidence. That's called hiding evidence, folks. That's like saying you're guilty. Next, Michigan poll observer testified Xerox copies, in quote, of military ballots. All had votes for Joe Biden. America, please. Am I living in a Twilight Zone episode here? Because I'm so blue in the face I can barely pronounce these articles and these headlines and these excerpts that I'm gleaning from articles and videos, because I've been doing this for so many weeks. Why aren't people in jail? Why isn't this going to Congress? One state, one vote. Why is the Supreme Court not jumping in? Why is this election not being null and void? Have we fallen that much? Is everybody in every institution in the hierarchy positions all bought and paid for and blackmailed? Is everyone? My gosh. Next, Texas files election lawsuit against Georgia, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin at the Supreme Court. Next, I saw voter fraud. Michigan election observer was witness to fraud, but was kicked out of the TCF when he started recording the fraud data. Wow. Can you believe that the idiots on the mainstream media are so bought and paid for, have sold out the American people so bad, they're still calling Joe Biden president-elect? Wow. Next, Dominion insider turned whistleblower states 3.8 million votes were changed, stealing the election for Biden, and he's going to testify. Next, video system glitch in Wisconsin stole over 19,000 votes for Trump and then gave them to Joe Biden. That's a 38,000 vote swing. Next, Zuckerberg shifted 9 of 10 Georgia counties to Joe Biden, and there's a major lawsuit where he's caught in massive illegal plot to overthrow the election. People, if this was me or you, if this was Rich Scheben or Vincent Finelli or any average Joe, we would be in the who's cow a long time ago. So what I'm going to do is I still have a lot on voter and election fraud, but I'm going to mix it up a little bit and talk about, I got a pile of, like I always talk about every time I'm on the air, the COVID 1984 pile. You get why we all say 1984, right? The double standard hypocrisy pile. The consequences of political correctness and the agenda, what it's done to us and our freedoms and liberties in America pile. So I'm going to do that, and then if I have time, I'm going to go back to more election and voter fraud. We really appreciate you being here. I'll be right back. I'm looking at my pile of voter/election fraud evidence, and the other pile I'm going to get into briefly, and I'm looking at the clock, and it's not jiving. So I want to mention, I'm going to shortcut a few articles here in a row regarding voter fraud before I go into that next pile. I had a few articles on the rejection rate. The rejection rate this year compared to last year was minuscule. In other words, they don't count, they're not counting just legal votes. They're counting all votes that were made up, that were fake signatured, that were corrupted, that were Xerox, that came in on USB stick. They're counting anything that they can say is a vote. So this vote is this whole 2020 vote is non-transparent. It's done entirely by bribes, threats, blackmail, under the table money, by force. You've been betrayed by big corporations and government departments that present themselves with a phony manufactured position on what they stand for. It's not just the DOJ, the FBI, the CIA, the mainstream media, the U.S. Postal Service. It's all of them. They are now officially non-American. You've been played. Just like these pristine ballots, when they say, "Oh, this got mailed and there's no fold marks in and there's no envelopes, there's no coordinating signature," they really think that you guys are stupid. It's unbelievable. Okay, so now I'm going to go to my pile for a little variety here. Okay, first article, the new untouchables. Seattle wants to legitimize crime for the underclass. Guess who they're going to attack? That's right. The bottom 93%, because the wealthy are going to have their 10,000-acre ranches and their bunkers and their private islands and their yachts and their private planes, and they can escape. And they can afford private security. So when they take away your guns, they're still going to have hired private security who carry guns to protect themselves. That's right. That's how it goes, folks. Like the little people don't have enough problems. You know, I have a reliable source that called me the other day, and we were talking about mortgage and being out of debt and things like that. And long story short, he was saying how there used to be a reliability, a credibility with mortgage companies. Well, after he refinanced There was more confusion, less verifying, less chance on getting amortization schedules, which everybody should get. But see, when you refi, it kind of confuses the whole math problem. So you should always ask for an amortization schedule, even if you refi, which is refinance. Whether they're going to give it to you is another story, but I would always ask for it. What's happened is that they changed, even after he refied, they changed the amount of interest he's paying on a monthly basis. They changed it under his nose. So now he has to check every call every month to make sure that they got the check and it's legit. See, this is another reason the U.S. dollar is going down. As the U.S. dollar loses purchasing power, these outfits, mortgage companies, doesn't matter, they're looking to feather the nest of their executives. So what are they going to do? They're going to hire people who are incompetent based on what group they're in with no qualifications. And what happens when you say something? Oh, you're a racist, bigot, sexist, misogynist, homophobe, intolerant, violent, right? You're a conspiracy theorist, anti-Islamist-phobe, right? So what happens? There's no accountability or less accountability, and the executives pocket more of your money. May the farce be with you, everybody. This is now the new America. Next is a video deleted. Oh, I think I mentioned this one. Next, ex-Pfizer executive demands the EU halt COVID-19 vaccine studies over indefinite infertility and other health concerns. I spent a lot of time on vaccines lately, and we have to remember some math, folks. These vaccines, they say it's safe, but they want liability immunity. Welcome back, folks. The clock is ticking. I'm just going to try to rattle off as much as I can and keep my comments as short as I can because I have so much information. I'm not going to get to probably 50%. Bombshell, John Hopkins. Researcher says that the CDC data shows COVID-19 has no effect on percentage of death, even in older people. I want you to, when you hear these statistics and this so-called math coming from the powers that be, everybody, remember that we lose about probably in the neighborhood of 8,000 people per day on average in the U.S. regarding mortality. So when you see numbers, I want you to think about that number and then do the math, okay? And we've given so much evidence that shows that death rates did not increase, and that's why they want to get the numbers up, because they want to control you with fear. And just like the Denmark study and other so-called experts who weren't bought and paid for say masks do nothing. These are all published articles in the public domain. I am not making this stuff up. Okay, next. Barack Obama says that black men are susceptible to Trump's macho style. If I wasn't hurting on time, I'd laugh for about 5 minutes straight. This is the Democrat Party who called black men super predators, and now he's saying, Barack Obama's saying, that they're susceptible to Donald Trump's macho style. We're living on the planet Stupidville. Next. Project Veritas, CNN's Jeff Zucker projected Joe Biden by dismissing and refusing to pursue allegations of pedophile sex against Hunter Biden. This is on tape. On tape. Next, the leftist obsession with Parler reveals their first infatuation, with thought control. That's why they want groupthink. This is how they control you. This is their addiction to power, money, and control. They got to feed you the narrative, and they want to keep you distracted, dumbed down, and divided by groups so you don't do the reading and research to figure it out yourself. Next, top Gavin Newsom advisor arrested. He tried to suffocate a 4-year-old child. I'm losing words here because it's unbelievable how these people are in power and we're all conspiracy theorists anti-ism-ist-phobes. Unbelievable. In San Diego, the mayor says California closing playgrounds has no science behind it. Of course it doesn't. Next, Obama judge in Nevada denies Trump campaign lawsuit, ignores. Did I say the word ignore? 20 books full of evidence. See, our whole system is bought and paid for, folks. Blackmailed and bribed and threatened. There's nothing legitimate in America anymore. This is why our dollar is falling like gravity. Next, Biden inauguration likely to be virtual. The reason why it's virtual because there's going to be a bunch of people there heckling because nobody shows up to his rallies. Everybody knows this is election fraud. The whole thing is fake. The whole thing is stolen. That's why they want to make his inauguration virtual. They don't want right side broadcasting to show all the eyes rolling in the background, all maybe 11 of them. Next, Tom Brady's company received more than $960,000 in PPP loans. I got nothing against Tom Brady. I believe he is the GOAT of the NFL. But I'll tell you one thing, when these rich people are taking advantage of the system, when the little guy is thinking about surviving day to day, that's a bunch of BS. Next, GOP Senator Kelly Loeffler's campaign staffer killed in an accident. The word accident is in quotes and an asterisk. Next, New York City reporter spends $12 million per inch of snow. Reportedly, New York City reportedly spent $12 million per inch of snow plowed last winter. Now that's your government money being worth something, right? And you got to pay for it in inflation and taxes, people. Next, Chinese recently purchased over 180,000 acres of Texas ranch land near a runway of the U.S. largest pilot training base on the U.S.-Mexican border. Are you paying attention and connecting these dots with China, people? Next, Bryan Cranston says his series shows how justice system benefits those with white privilege. Yeah. Well, when I tried to get a job with the National Forest Service with a degree in forestry, and they hired two girls right out of high school, 18 years old with no education, how did I benefit as being a white male? When I tried to get a job with the New York City Fire Department, and that was the year that the women's group sued because they could not pass the test, so they sued to lower the bars of standards and expectations for the job. All that white male privilege. And then when GlaxoSmithKline told me they wouldn't give me that job share because it was for women only, and I contacted and consulted 30 attorneys, I was told I didn't have enough victim group status or group self-pity points. Man, the white male privilege is such a benefit. Woo! Next. Minority students crushed by lockdown. 600% increase in math failures and 500% increase in English failures. Yeah, this is what happens when you close schools. This is what happens when you lower the bars of standards and expectations. The only people who benefit are the teachers' unions, and the parents and the students suffer. That's what lockdowns do. That's what they're designed to do. Next, Congressman introduces controversial bill requiring voters to be alive. Again, if I had time, I'd be rolling around laughing. That's in lieu of dead people voting, and there's got to be a bill. We have fallen to the line of stupid, folks. We have lowered our bars of standards and expectations so much for getting a job that work and common sense and logic has now been delegitimized. Next, Project Veritas releases another unedited CNN conference call discussing hyping coronavirus fears to damage Trump. It's on tape, folks. It's on tape, audio tape. Next, Oregon teacher has complete meltdown at anti-lockdown protesters, and she, who who's a teacher in Oregon teaching your kids, are telling these people who are protesting to go kill themselves. That's right. It's on tape. And for those of you who are keeping your kids in Oregon, in any blue state school, or any public government school for that matter, it's your fault. You better homeschool your kids, get the neighbors together, and create a curriculum for your children. Always have a parent in attendance and create a homeschool environment. I promise you you'll be way better off. Next, Fox News Wallace demands Trump call Biden president-elect, or Trump official call Biden president-elect. See, this is what happens when you get put on third base by your daddy and don't earn your job. And you're willing to sell out the American people for a false president-elect office. Next, Democrats say it's okay to vote without ID, but you must have a vaccine ID to walk around society. You believe it? Next, Oregon doctor's license revoked over claims COVID-19 was a common cold and he refused to wear the face mask. Well, he's an expert. He's a physician, but he's not a bought and paid for expert. He's not part of the club. So what he says, if he's not playing with the narrative line, he must be demonized, delegitimized, discredited. That's how it works. Next, top microbiologist says COVID vaccine is, quote, downright dangerous and will send you to your doom, unquote. Next, Chicago's teachers union tweets reopening schools would be racist and sexist and misogynistic. And then they realized that they goofed and they deleted it. People, do not send your kids to public government schools. Homeschool. Next, health, Rand Paul, no scientific evidence of tyrannical lockdowns benefiting the people. Of course there isn't. The lockdowns is for the agenda. Forced austerity, crashing the economy, eliminate supply and demand, getting rid of cash, centralizing cryptocurrency, making people submissive, making them social distance, make the technology technocracy control you, eliminate legitimacy of voting, create more domestic violence, more depression, more chaos, more division, more infighting, more food shortages, more depopulation, eliminate free speech, forced vaccines, immunity passports, forced lockdowns, while destroying your immune system with 5G. This is what happens when we keep concentrating on the stupid stuff, like what group hyphen and pronoun you have, instead of objective facts. This is the world that we live in, folks. We need to get our head out of the sand. Okay, I'm going to go back to, and I'm not going to even come close to being done, but I'm going to go back to election/voter fraud. And I'm going to shortcut my shortcuts here. They also plan to present polling that 1% of the Nevada voters shown to have voted never did, and 2% of those shown to have voted by mail never got a ballot. You can't make this stuff up. Next, over 1,500 ballots were cast by dead voters, that 42,000 plus people voted multiple times, data on huge spike in incomplete voter registrations and home addresses in temporary RV camps and casinos. I'm telling you, if I had to really just make this up and put it on paper, I couldn't be this creative, people. Next, video footage from Georgia shows that poll workers were told to stop counting and leave, while 4 people stayed behind to continue counting ballots in privacy. Elections should be invalidated. That's illegal. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable. Next, the Wisconsin Supreme Court refused to hear President Trump's election lawsuits, saying the case must first wind its way through the lower courts. Next, Ben Witz offered Jim Comey an apparent copy of the Steele dossier in December of 2016. According to FBI emails, Witz and the third Brookings official now linked to the dossier. This is an indication he offered assistance to the FBI and the Trump probe. We're corrupt. We're a banana republic. We've lost it, folks. Welcome back, folks. Rich Scheben here from Montana. Last segment, I am going to rip out as many objective facts and election fraud as I can in the last few minutes here. Next, sequential absentee ballots, no dates, all same signatures, not in the poll book. These votes were manufactured. Michigan hearing. Next, mail-in ballot fraud. U.S. Postal Service whistleblower Ethan Pease described how 100,000 missing mail-in ballots in Wisconsin were illegally backdated. Next, Georgia Senate Oversight Committee confirms that the Dominion machines were updated by Dominion employees before the election. Next, witness at the hearing in Michigan is testifying that he watched poll workers equipped with pens fill in ballots for the Democrats, quote, over and over and over again. How can we certify fraud unless we're taping bananas to our flag? We are a banana republic, and this is making the Democrats and the neocon rhino trader Republicans is going to make us lose everything we have. We're not going to have any purchasing power left. Talk about obstruction. The United States Postal Service is preventing witnesses and whistleblowers from testifying concerning wide-scale orders for workers to deliver ballots to nearly 8,000 undeliverable addresses. The ballots were later collected, turned in, and presumably counted. There are multiple key witnesses who are whistleblowers with matching independent stories supporting these issues, whose U.S. Postal Service is trying to obstruct them from testifying, the Nevada GOP notes. This is sad. 100,000 forged ballots. The state Republican Party is also putting forward a data scientist testifying to over 100,000 of these unique cases of illegal ballots. You know what? Our own Postal Service, we're paying for them. We're paying for them. Next, Michigan GOP is raising red flags about a memo from Secretary of State Vincent pushing for the mass deletion of election data. Benson's office told clerks to delete electronic poll book software and associated files amid calls to audit the election. Our new study shows 1.8 million excess or ghost voters in 353 counties. Must be 1.8 thousand. It could be 1.8 million. Of ghost voters in 353 counties across 29 states. The data highlights the recklessness of mailing blind ballots and ballot applications to voter registration lists. Next, Democrat Rep C.J. Johnson publicly shows the world that Democrats are willing to target and harass anybody who stands up for free and fair elections. And she's doxing a witness on video, knowing full well it's going to put a target on the witness back. And this is in Michigan. What a shame. It's hard to believe it's America. In Georgia, listen to these numbers, folks. Just math. But it's a conspiracy theorist, even though it's all proven with 100 affidavits, 100 plus affidavits. You ready? 2,500 plus felons voted. 66,000+ underage registered. 2,400+ people voted without registration. Over 1,000 post office box addresses. Almost 5,000 registered late. Over 10,000 dead people voted. 395 cast ballots in a different state. Almost 16,000 people filed national change of address, and 40,000+ moved. This is all with affidavits, folks, not making stuff up. Next, in the video, Klein reveals how Democrats stole ballots from Americans. He explained how third parties, specifically Rock the Vote, which is a left-wing organization, was given front-end access to voter rolls by Democrat Secretary of States, where they actually had the ability to add names to the voter rolls. Next, Mark Zuckerberg contributed over $400 million to the leftist group that was used to give Democrats stronghold areas, especially in critical swing states, an advantage in the November election. He should be in jail. He should be in prison. People, we really appreciate you being here. Glean this information, share it with people. It's up to us. We're the last wall.